Well, very good evening, everyone. Charles here for Grant's daily chart analysis. Just wrapping up for the evening, 25 minutes to 9 local time here in Milan. A bit of a strange day, profitable one nevertheless, but we'll start from the DXY and those points of interest that we're looking to manipulate this morning, particularly on that 4 hour time frame. We had a look at that 4 hour 50 MA. We had to see how price was respecting that 4 hour 50 MA bottom left hand chart if I bring your attention to that 4 hour time frame. And then as a result of previous price action, we're able to just stick in this 4 hour order block. Of course, technically it is incorrect. However, what I have been recognizing of late, particularly since the war has begun, is I'm using the DXY in an incredible amount in terms of my confluence for, let's say, getting ready, let's say for today, for good example, for a cross pair position. In this case, looking at that DXY strength for a cross pair short on EU and GU, for good example. So we had this older 4 hour order block there up in the charts, looking to refine the area down, but I wasn't too fixated on refining the area down. Of course, as you can see by my illustrations, I did look to identify price action and structure, particularly on that 15-minute time frame, as the 15-minute time frame is pretty much my entry time frame on the cross pairs as well. So it's always good to have a look at how price is reacting in terms of the index, because I have speculated on the index using exactly the same strategy and I know it works. Therefore, looking at price action in terms of that higher high, higher low, higher high, let's see if we can come back down this area, retest that 4 hour 50 MA for that higher high continuation, and we've just seen that now. So with that in mind, this morning, Euro US dollar was pretty much, I mean, to be honest, all of the cross pairs were on the radar today. I was looking at EU shorts, was looking at AU shorts. That never came back, unfortunately. US dollar CAD longs, wasn't too interested in taking it as a result of, in my opinion, waiting for the better area. It's just unfortunate how US dollar CAD is moving with no real pullbacks that suit my strategy, even with an aggressive type of entry criteria. It looks like only myself is trading US dollar CAD here to the right hand side. Nevertheless, so we took this short position on Euro US dollar this morning. It was going quite nicely, to be honest, and as I usually do, just have a couple of alerts. In fact, the alerts will move now, but yeah, had an alert to go break even once we broke that low. Was happy to see those wicks below that area. Well, not happy to see the wicks towards the opposite direction, of course, but happy to break below this area, particularly on that lower time frame. So lock that trade off at break even. And then, of course, we had that news come out on the DXY. So 1:15 in the afternoon, you can see exactly what happened here on the DXY, but pay careful attention to where price actually went to. And the discussion that's currently ongoing in Third Grant Master is how can we seek to find that confluence from the DXY, because I talk about it an awful lot. And here, in a nutshell, is that confluence. If price was looking to move to the downside in any capacity, where would you expect it to roll back down to? So in my opinion, the 4 hour 50 MA is a great indication to understand, well, if price is going to roll to the downside, it is going to, of course, look to retest that 4 hour 50 MA. So in all honesty, when price actually broke this 15-minute order block, I was quite happy to see it. Although was taken out break even on EU, for me, that then provided a much better entry on the cross pair, of which then I took a sell limit. I had that set this morning, to be honest, but I was happy to keep that sell limit on in the market to see exactly where that 4 hour or this particular candle took us below that 4 hour 50 EMA. Previous candle closed above the 4 hour 50 EMA. So based on my strategy, I have every reason to believe that this the current 4 hour candle is going to look and reject that 4 hour 50 MA. So again, a prime example of what I talk about over and over and over again. And it's not just the 4 hour 50 MA. I mean, I pay careful attention to the 4 hour, the daily, and the weekly 50 MA. The other EMAs, in my opinion, are a little bit too dynamic, and price action, in my opinion, only doesn't respect the EMA as clean as it does on the 4 daily and the weekly time frame. So with that said, as I mentioned, I was happy to see price roll back down to another area to give us another opportunity at, let's say, a different pair. Unfortunately, AU still didn't pull back as high at the same time. As you can see, my best area for the AU short was up here. This position was pretty much nailed on. I was looking to take that as an instant execution, if not a limit order, by the time some of these alerts were triggered, but it wasn't to be. And then GBP US dollar. So this sell limit was set as soon as we actually broke these lows. So, of course, by this illustration as well, you can see exactly what I was looking for this morning when I come to the charts. I was happy to short from this area so long as it showed me something, as so long as we were able to break an area, break the most recent low, and then what I was going to do, or what I did do for good example, again, using that 4-hour 50 EMA as the confluence, one of the major confluences, to be quite honest, not even the daily 50 MA. In fact, the daily 50 MA was a bit of, well, it certainly wasn't a confluence. It was a bit of a factor against a position. It was a factor for me potentially to sway me aside from taking that as a sell limit, because when I'm seeing the daily EMA just up there, I do have the expectation that price may well want to creep into that daily 50 MA for the day, retest that 50 MAs, breach it to the highs, and then provide the liquidity coming out of it. However, with that said, stuck to one of my most successful setups, which is just a snap of Asia, a snap of most recent lows as well, and therefore you rely heavily on the 15-minute time frame, so long as you're able to read the most basic format of price action and structure. We can see we had a low in the market, lower high, lower low then created. As soon as that lower low was created in the market, my sell limit was set. And it wasn't, well, we had price come up just as that news came out as well, 1:15 in the afternoon. And then I just allowed price to do its thing, almost taken out, particularly with spreads. That was closer to 10 pips, not 9.3. But that's the trade in essence, to be honest. And of course, we've made that lower low. We've come back in for the lower high and most basic price action, lower low continuation. So I've had an opportunity to close that out already. I must admit, I haven't closed it just yet. And for me, I'll just be waiting to see if price is going to come back down to these areas. I've got my take profit sat down towards these lows. Let's see if we're going to retest this low again, the way that I see it, as opposing it to be a double bottom, looking for the rejection to the upside. All I see is just a liquidity area right there for price to want to roll short into that area, and off we go down to the point of interest, where not that I would be looking for a long from that area, but I figure that this is a nice point of interest, be it the last 4-hour order block that I must admit has been mitigated. But once we start to refine that area down, we can see that this 15-minute order block is right there up at the highs, and it's the only 15-minute order block that's available in this region. So I have every reason to believe price is going to head back down to these lows. So that was pretty much the day in a nutshell, team. The DXY really providing the bias for the day, as I've mentioned previously in this morning's breakdown, that I'm happy to see approaching the charts this week, that the DXY, the index, isn't up at the weekly 50 of May. Like last week, you had a bit of a confusion when price was opening up at those highs of that weekly 50 of May. We're kind of, well, it's a conflict right away, because we are expecting DXY strength to come out of the market based on the technicals. However, the weekly 50 MA, with price closing below it, of course, suggests to us that we're going to expect the weakness coming out of the market. So straight away, based on my strategy, it was a bit of a conflicting start to the week. But nevertheless, seeing that the DXY, as I've mentioned, has now closed below, or a great distance below that weekly 50 MA, we now have great reason to believe now we can trade up towards it before then a potential rejection. And with that said, the most recent weekly candle is, well, it's difficult to say. I mean, factually, we have certainly closed above it, so even more of a confluence now for the DXY to want to roll towards those highs, as we are in fact not trending towards the weekly 50 MA. We're using it as a support for price actually to break and push beyond it and then create that high, and then with all other 50 EMAs matching suit, particularly that 4-hour 50 EMA, as I go on and on and on and on about it, you can see exactly why I go on about it. So that's a day in a nutshell, team. Euro US dollar break even trade. It's unfortunate to now see it roll into some decent profits. It is what it is. That's trading. Happy to take a break even position there as opposed to a loss. And then GU floating in some profits at the moment that, as I said, if we get towards the end of the evening and price is just gravitating in that area, then I will close that position out, no problem at all. I'll bang the profits for the day, not a problem. But with that said, we'll just see if these alerts trigger, and I'll have that come down to here for a nice 4% end to the day. So team, I'll be back tomorrow morning. As always, do take care. Thank you very much for your support across all the channels. It is very much so appreciated. I see your messages, good and bad. Thank you very much for all of those. And good luck in your trading journey. All the very best. Charles, we'll speak soon.